Welcome to the Underground, the Steel City Underground, a Pittsburgh Steelers podcast made by fans like you, for fans like you. Now, here's your host.
Hey everyone, welcome to this edition of the Steel City Underground video podcast. My name is Brian Roach. I will be with you for the duration. And everybody is aware of the events of yesterday. Of course, I'm talking about Dan Rooney passing away. And so, unlike most of the podcasts and most of the videocasts where we talk about football and we talk about the Steelers, and of course right now I've been talking about the draft and whatnot, I'm not going to do that this time around. I want to talk about Dan Rooney. So, to give you some perspective, let me start off with this. I'm not a guy who generally gets upset when someone I don't actually know, who's not important in my life, who isn't a direct contact, a friend, a loved one, what have you, passes away. Robin Williams, when he passed away, it bothered me. I was sad. I felt bad. I think primarily because it was such a shock and unexpected. And, the circumstances surrounding it all made it a little more impactful. But, it was more of a, wow, that's a shock, and kind of a, that's too bad, and I wish he had gotten help kind of a thing, not something that really hurt you. But yesterday, when I went to get an update on the Steelers site, and I happened to hit it, and that banner came up, and the site had been blacked out, and you just had the memoriam there, it was different. It hurt. And I couldn't quite figure out why it was impacting me that way. My daughter, Emily, oftentimes when someone passes away who's famous, because like a lot of kids, she's kind of obsessed with famous people, will come up to me and say, blah, 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 whoever it is, passed away today. Are you sad? And I almost universally, in fact, I do universally say, no, I'm not sad. I feel bad for their family. I hope they had a good life, but I don't know them. And I don't know Dan Rooney any more than someone who might have met him at a game, met him around town, met him at an event, because that's how I know Dan Rooney. I met him 3 times at a couple Steelers events and once at the stadium. And I'm not going to pretend that those little 10-minute conversations, or maybe 15 at the longest, were give me some dramatic connection with Dan Rooney. They don't. I don't know Dan Rooney, but yet I feel kind of like I do. It surprised me. It took me off my game, so to speak, yesterday, and it hit right about as I was leaving work. So I had a 2.5-hour drive home from work, where all I could do was ruminate on what had just happened, and it bothered me. I mean, it continued to bother me. It continues to bother me right now, because again, as I said, I don't know Dan Rooney, and so my story's not that different from anybody else. I mean, I'm sure there's thousands upon thousands of members of Steelers Nation, fans of the Steelers, who have met Dan Rooney and have a much more real connection to him than I do. Certainly the players and the people he worked with do, and it's different. But the thing is, he's just, in those brief moments where I did meet him, what comes across is what everybody else is saying. He just was a genuine person, a sincere person. And, taking away the wealth and the standing that the man had, you just knew when you met him that he never thought he was better than you. He never thought he was anything but equal to you, or that you were equal to him. Your concerns, your opinions, your thoughts had as much validity as his did. I've met players and I've met coaches. Heck, I even met Jimmy Carter once when I was younger. So I've met a president. And now I can tell you that of all the people I've met, nobody ever came across as unassuming, as humble, as honestly interested in me and what I was having to say as Dan Rooney did. And, you know, for me personally, when I was younger, I was not the same guy I am now. And that's generally the case with all of us. As we grow older, we change and we mature and we learn. I'm not going to say I've matured, but I certainly have changed. And in my opinion, I can attribute part of that to Dan Rooney. In those conversations with him, as I said, none of which were very long, maybe 15 minutes at the most, 10 minutes more than likely, he had an impact on me, and it was a profound impact. And it all came from the idea that he viewed everybody kind of as the same. And if you've ever looked me up on Facebook or followed any of my other statements, sometimes I'll throw these on Twitter as well, you know that I have believed for a long time, and I state this often, that for all of us, humanity is inclusive. In other words, we are one race, human. We have one blood, red. I look at us all the same. Well, you know what? I didn't always look at things that way, but that opinion, that view of the world, comes from my meetings with Dan Rooney. All right, my interactions, the few that I had. It was those brief encounters that made me understand that nobody, no matter their race, their creed, their color, is any better or any worse than I am. Doesn't matter what your preferences are, doesn't matter how you identify yourself, you're human. Your blood is red. I'm human. My blood is red. We are all brothers and sisters under the skin and above the skin. I mean, we just all are. Now, I'm not trying to say that I was, a big, huge racist snob or something like that. I wasn't, but I also didn't really think about other people the same way that I do now, or in the way that I think maybe we all should. And Dan Rooney, in his short times with me, through his example and his kindness and his nature, he taught me in those brief moments how I felt we should all look at each other. And, the first time I met him, I asked him some kind of a ridiculous fanboy question. Look, I get starstruck with Steelers stuff. There's no question about it. And this was certainly one of those moments. And whatever came out of my mouth was absurd, but it had something to do with what's it like to win the Super Bowl, blah, blah, blah. It was ridiculous. And, Rooney could have blown me off. He could have been like, that's great. Yes, it's great. Thank you very much. But that just wasn't him. He listened to my stupid fanboy question. He considered it as if it was something important, because he viewed it, because I think in his mind, it was my question, and because I asked it, it was an important question to me. And, maybe it wasn't, maybe I just couldn't think of anything else to say, but he took it and respected it, right? And he answered it that way, and I don't remember the exact wording. You'd think I would, but I'm kind of old, and I don't remember a lot of stuff now. But I don't remember the exact wording, but it was something like this. Of course it feels great. But it's really not about me, and it's not about how I feel or my own success. It's the players. It's the coaches. It's the entire organization. And I enjoy, seeing how it impacts them. And I take pleasure from that. Something along those lines. The basic idea and the premise that I took away from it is it's never about him. It's always about others. It never was about Dan Rooney. It was about others. So, over the last 2 days, there have been tons of articles. NFL Network went on and on and on and on yesterday, and I was listening to it ad nauseum. I couldn't stop myself from doing so. And some of the articles that are pushed out are really great. And some of them, not so much. But, I want to point out a couple. Gene Collier, he did a piece called Dan Rooney Lived His Life with Powerful Humility. And it's probably, of everything that's been written over the past 2 days, it's one of my favorite pieces. So I recommend go look it up. If you can't find it, it'll be on my Twitter feed. Ed Boucher, he's done a couple pieces. The one where he is relaying how Joe Green couldn't keep himself from crying when he was talking about it. Also, very touching piece. if you've never read Chris Bradford of the Times Online, go read his stuff. He just done several articles today. Again, you can find them on my Twitter feed because I retweeted almost every one of them. And they're all really good, and they pose some interesting questions, and they give you an idea of Dan Rooney. So, these guys and many, many, many others all have the highlights of Dan Rooney's life, his career, the Rooney Rule, his impact on labor negotiations, all the things he did for the league. But, for me, the thing that keeps coming across, and I've believed this for a very long time, is if there is no Dan Rooney, there's no Steelers. Not the way we know the Steelers. If there's no Dan Rooney, there's no dynasty. There's no 4 Super Bowl wins. There may not be any Super Bowl wins. If there's no Dan Rooney, we may still be the Steelers of old. We probably aren't Steelers Nation. Dan Rooney is the root of the success of the Steelers franchise. Dan Rooney is the root of why we are all here. And Joe Kuzma put a thank you note to Dan Rooney, which I thought was very eloquent, and I recommend that you go read, because that's really how we should all feel. Dan Rooney gave us what we have in relation to the Steelers, and without him, it wouldn't be there. He hired Noel, he hired Cowher, along with Art II. He hired Mike Tomlin. Without those kind of insights, without his willingness to take on an African American sports writer named Bill Nunn and make him a part of the scouting department, maybe we don't have John Stallworth. Maybe we don't have a lot of players that we have, Mel Blount and various others. We wouldn't be the team we were, and probably wouldn't be the team we are now. I did a piece on my old website, Black and Gold Till I'm Dead and Cold, where I covered who I thought the top 100 people in Steelers history were, most influential people on the Steelers franchise. Not just, who's the greatest player, not who's, the best draft pick, whatever, but the individuals who have most impacted the Steelers. And number one was Dan Rooney, in my opinion. It wasn't the Chief, it's not Noel, it wasn't a player, it's Dan Rooney. And I believe that. I still believe that to this day, very strongly. His impact on the league is universally accepted. And as I said, the outpouring of respect that has been seen yesterday and today from the teams, from individuals, from ex-players, from players who never played for him on other teams, is unlike anything else I think anybody's ever seen. And I'm not going to go through a billion quotes, but I do want to share a couple that I thought were important. George McCaskey, who is the chairman of the Chicago Bears, wrote this: when Dan Rooney spoke at a league meeting, the entire room became quiet because everybody wanted to hear what he had to say. That's the kind of respect he commanded from our group. He was the conscience of the NFL. I mean, think about that. Just that statement. He was the conscience of the NFL. He goes on to say he was always stressing what was best for the game, the players, and the fans. And again, look at that order. It's not about what was best for Dan Rooney, or best for the Steelers, or best, for, the Rooney family. It's the league, and not really the league even. The game itself, the players, and the fans. Those were the things that he valued. Former President Barack Obama said Dan Rooney was a great friend of mine, but more importantly, he was a great friend of the people of Pittsburgh, a model citizen, and someone who represented the United States with dignity and grace on the world stage. Remember, for a few years he stepped away and he was the ambassador to Ireland. And he did things as the ambassador to Ireland that no ambassador to Ireland had ever done before. He visited all the counties in Ireland. And he had a connection there. It's just the way he went about life, right? Bill Cowher said that when he came to the Steelers, he was a young coach, and because of his mentor, Dan Rooney, he left the Steelers a better coach and a better man. And that's the message that I keep coming across, is the people who met Dan Rooney even like me, a casual encounter. You know, I might have had more than one, but you know, they're small encounters. People who met Dan Rooney came away the better for it. So, as I was saying, on the way home from work, I was kind of upset yesterday, and it's a 2.5 hour drive, so it's not. I don't have a short commute, right? And you know, this all hit right at 4 o'clock, so I'm about to leave, and I had to sit down because I couldn't walk through my office with like probably a paled face and have all the people at work come up to me and go, what's wrong? What happened? You look terrible. So I had to collect myself before I could even walk, and that's just not normal for me. But it was. Anyway, so on the way home, I was going to go on Facebook Live, and I was going to talk about Dan Rooney, basically doing what I'm doing right here, and I couldn't do it. I went on Facebook, I went live, and I wanted to say stuff. I couldn't. I literally could not open my mouth. I would have wept. I couldn't do it. So I'm trying to collect myself, and I just put on Danny Boy. And I just played Danny Boy and, tried to get myself ready to talk. And then eventually I couldn't. I turned the camera off myself and just put it on the trees passing by as I'm going down Palisades Parkway. And let it just sit on that because I didn't want to just show a big old ugly dude crying while Danny Boy was playing. Instead, I wanted to just have everybody think of Dan Rooney. And so, I posted it on Facebook in one of the groups that I'm in. And, people got a lot of comments. They thought it was a nice tribute, all that kind of thing. But the one that struck me and stayed with me was this one. One woman said, "It's like we all lost a dad." And I think that kind of sums it up. There's a reason the players called him Pops. There's a reason that Ike Taylor called him Pops Rooney, And it's not just Ike. It's a lot of players felt that kind of connection with him. And I think that's translated beyond the immediate team to the fans to a certain extent. He was different. And while he may not have thought it, he was better. He was a better man than a lot of us, a better person than a lot of us. He was a better human being than a lot of us. And quite frankly, it hurts my heart that he's no longer among us. There's a lot of sentiment going around. I get it. I understand it. A lot of people are talking about win it for Dan, and they're looking at next season, and they're okay, we're going to be fired up. Win it for Dan. I'm not ready for that yet. I don't care, quite frankly. I don't care about next season. I don't care about the win one for the Gipper stuff. I don't care about that. I care about the loss of a great man. And I just want to remember all the good that he did, all that he was, and the person who was willing to take time to talk to me as an equal. That's how I remember Dan Rooney, and it's how I want to continue to remember him. So just be thankful that this man was a part of our legacy, part of the Steelers' legacy, and we will not see another like him, I don't believe. All right, until next time, Nation, be safe and have a good day.
We would like to thank you for listening and remind our listeners to follow us on social media and our website, www.steelcityunderground.com.